There isn't a single person alive that hasn't gone through difficult times. We've all lost our jobs before. We've all lost friends as we grew up. We've all had terrible experiences with romance and heartbreak. And we've all had days where we just don't want to get up in the morning. Not because we don't want to, but because we physically can't get up. There is no motivation, no drive, no willingness, and sometimes no reason is good enough, whether that be work, friends, or loved ones. But what about when every bad thing in our past comes back all at the same time? What about when the terrible sinking feeling we have doesn't go away? What about when the intense, anxious rush that used to come over us at random times doesn't leave us with no end in sight? There are different names to describe these different emotions. Some call it depression, anxiety, mental health problems. Some call it a combination of all of the above. But most of the time, for people experiencing it constantly, they know that no word can ever fully describe it. There are those blessed enough to eventually come out of it and see the beauty of life, also end up loving themselves after it all. The journey that comprises of living a happy life for a while, for all of it to come crashing down where every domain of life becomes hell, losing friends and seeing a breakdown of relationships along the way, then meeting new people and learning new lessons, and eventually seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, finally being able to not only accept but love yourself as well as life. That journey is put in front of our eyes in the form of a gorgeous and perfectly written anime. This masterpiece is the story of redemption. It is the story of a deaf girl that taught a guy and many other people the meaning of life. It is the story of a terrible human being becoming one of the best characters in all of anime history. It is the story that changes your life forever. It is A Silent Voice. If you ask most people to name their favorite anime, or the one that impacted them the most, they will say A Silent Voice. This show has changed the lives of millions of people around the world, and if you haven't seen it, you can bet that it will change yours in some way or another. The basic premise of the show is that this girl, Shoko Nishimiya, transfers to a school and meets a set of characters that become the focus of the anime. She is deaf and struggles to form relationships with other people, and through no fault of her own, becomes the victim of vicious bullying by the people she is trying to befriend. The biggest culprit of this bullying is Shoya, our protagonist. Eventually Shoko transfers to another school, and Shoya is forced to take all of the blame for the bullying, even for the parts he wasn't responsible for. This leads to Shoya going on a personal journey of redemption, meeting Shoko and the rest of his classmates later on into his high school life, whilst meeting new friends along the way. His story is significant to us as the audience in more ways than one. How many of us have said or done things to people we wish we could take back? Most likely all of us. How many of us faced responsibility for our actions and continue to be held accountable for it after years and years? Almost none of us. Shoya goes into severe depression and becomes a very timid and reserved individual, which contrasts from his previous confident, extroverted disposition. He's beaten down by the people around him as well as life, to eventually leading him to try permanently escaping. No matter what anyone thought of Shoya at the start of the show, seeing him try to make amends with Shoko and make the lives of the people around him just a little bit better makes every single one of us feel connected to him. By the end of the show, he becomes one of my favorite characters of all time and will always stay with me no matter what. What sets Shoya apart from other characters is that he feels more real and honest than anyone else we have ever seen. Part of the reason is that we see his thoughts play out in the world around him. He has shut himself off from the world, and this is seen by the giant X's that cover up everyone's faces. The noise of the people around him is too much for him to handle, so he's always got his head in his hands. He is too scared to be judged by others because he is worried about what people will say to him, so he can't meet people's eyes. He has such a negative perception of himself that he imagines that people are telling him to disappear. He believes he is so undeserving of happiness that if someone tries to harm him or his reputation, he smiles and thinks that's what he deserves. He is so ashamed to ask people to be his friend that he's confused if anyone shows any attention to him. In fact, he has been isolating himself so much that he doesn't understand the definition of a friend until Nagatsuka explains it to him. His thoughts, actions, behavior, history, desires, plans are all visible. There is nothing about him that's actually hidden from us as the audience. This makes every interaction he has with others that much more personal. Every time Shoya gets pushed 2 steps back, we feel as if we are the ones being pushed back. Our minds start going to every scenario where we acted in such ways and were set back. Maybe some of us have been the bullies or have been bullied at some points in our lives. A Silent Voice is the most personal anime ever made. It's like the show has seen the worst aspects of our lives and put it onto the screen. A lot of people have said that Shoya got what he deserved for bullying Shoko, but I completely disagree. The day he accepted what he did was wrong and saw redemption was the day he changed and became a different person, and that was after he saw his mom take the fall for his actions. All of the bullying that he faced and blame that he took was completely unjustified and made me despise his alleged friends. Almost none of his friends who participated in the bullying, this includes the hypocrite teacher who laughed along to Shoya's bullying and did nothing to stop it when he could have done so easily, took any kind of real responsibility for their actions. I'm going to make a hate video dedicated to this character Kawaii Miki because she deserves it, so I won't do that here. Ueno starts off as a horrible person, pretending that she wants to help Shoko, then turning against her when it doesn't suit Ueno. In the manga, at least her motivation for doing so is made clearer, where she likes Shoya and goes along with the things he does. But later on, when Shoya decides to reflect and improve Shoko's life, she comes back to act in the same old ways. This shows that she's completely unaware of the impacts of her actions and is more interested in satisfying her own personal goals than helping the people she caused so much trouble for. Not only that, but she puts the blame on Shoya, then acts confused as to why he doesn't like her and his other old friends. Ueno is fundamentally a very selfish person and is completely unaware of her actions. What made me absolutely hate this character was how she treated Shoko after Shoya's hospitalization, blaming her for the situation and physically attacking her for it. People made the observation that she improved her ways at the end of the movie by trying to learn sign language, and I understand to an extent. But to me, there's no real redemption in that. If you think about it, by the end of the film, she treats Shoko the way any normal person would treat her, so her terrible actions before make this normal treatment look like redemption. It's a little bit like thanking someone for not running you over when you're on the sidewalk. It's not an accomplishment that they didn't run you over, it's a societal, moral, personal, logical expectation. She doesn't become a good person by the end of the film, she just stops treating her like trash. It's still progress, but it doesn't make her a good person. It just means she's not being a total bully anymore. I can understand if this is enough development for some people, but it doesn't change much for me. I still hate Ueno, just a little less than before. One of the best characters in this show is Shoko's mother. Manga readers are aware of the history she has with Shoko's father and his family. They were terrible people that left the responsibility for taking care of Shoko to her mother because they were ashamed and horrified that his daughter was deaf. Even more than that, they blamed Shoko's mother for causing her daughter's deafness, even though it is made clear that it was the father's fault. If you haven't read the manga, go check it out. Believe me, it explains a lot more than the film did and provides a lot more detail for every scenario, slowing the character development down to a significant degree to help the audience understand each character better. The manga is better than the film, but this does not mean that the movie is bad at all. Shoko's mother takes on the responsibility of her children, working multiple jobs and taking care of them at the same time with the help of one of the best supporting characters in the history of the world, Shoko's grandmother. Shoko's mother is an unbelievably tough woman and stands up to the people who bully her daughter like she did when she fought Ueno when she attacked Shoko. That was one of the most satisfying moments in the entire show. She is incredibly strict and firm, but that personality is what has allowed her family to survive so far, and it is refreshing to see a character who is genuinely not a pushover. She is the best mother Shoko could have gotten, and her whole family is lucky she is the type of person she is. This is also true for Shoya's mother, who is doing the best to provide for her children despite being in the same situation as Shoko's family. It's easy to criticize Shoya's mother for not being aware of Shoya's behavior early on and not doing anything about it, but when you consider how much she has on her plate and how difficult her life already is, along with how she reacted when she did find out, there's nothing anyone can actually blame her for. She did the absolute best with what she had been given, better than anyone else ever could, and she did it consistently. The adult women in the show are some of the best characters I have ever seen, whilst the adult men are some of the absolute worst. Also, can I just say that Shoya's sister's husband is one of the randomest things I have ever seen in anime. He's a pretty cool guy though. Nagatsuka deserves more love than he gets. He was the first person to genuinely take an interest in Shoya, recognizing his good qualities as a person and as a friend, which allowed Shoya to gain the confidence necessary to take steps towards redemption. The relationship allowed Shoya to understand that correcting past mistakes and reaching out to others doesn't have to be as difficult as he makes it out to be in his head. A character that brings clarity to a situation and allows the show to move forward is what sets the stage for real development throughout the story. Not only that, but Nagatsuka actively stands up for Shoya, genuinely wants the best for him, tries to help him even when Shoya himself directly pushes him away. I've seen this movie 100 times, and the more I watch it, the more I realize that the catalyst for the entire show was Nagatsuka himself. This is the only character in the entire movie and manga that no one ever disliked at any point in time, alongside Shoko's grandmother. I can make a video on why I hate every single character for different reasons, but no matter how much I try, it would be impossible to do that with these two characters. Yuzuru is the most impactful yet least mentioned characters in A Silent Voice. She is one of the few people in the show who has never intentionally tried to do anything to harm Shoko in any way, and despite her young age, is bearing a tremendous amount of invisible responsibility for her older sister. Rather than focusing on herself, her school, her friends, her life, she fully devotes herself to helping Shoko succeed in any way she knows how. I mean, taking pictures of dead things and putting it around the house so that Shoko wouldn't think of harming herself. I have never heard of anyone ever going that far and spend that much time and effort to help anybody. Paying a therapist your annual salary wouldn't make them do that much to help you. Her self-sacrificial nature, headstrong personality, and deep compassion make her one of the most well-written and lovable characters in all of anime. Even if sometimes she does things that are bad or harmful, it is all driven by a genuine desire to protect and help Shoko, something only a handful of people try to do with Shoko. No anime will ever touch you as deeply as A Silent Voice will, no matter how many times you watch it. Seeing our favorite hero save the world sends chills down our spine. Seeing two geniuses clash in a high-level societal chess game mesmerizes us. Seeing a beautifully crafted fight scene between a multitude of powerful characters excites us to incomprehensible levels. But this show touches our soul at a level so deep that I can confidently say this is the greatest anime film to be ever made, if not the greatest anime ever made. There are no fight scenes, no jump scares, no power fantasies, no isekais, and no death games. This is an anime about the real world and how tough it can get. This is a show about how our actions always come back to us in the end. This is a show about mental health problems, and the gorgeous visuals and storytelling depict it to a microscopic level. We know exactly how Shoya and the others are feeling in every single scene because they portray what happens into our minds in the forms of genius animation, but also because we have felt those things ourselves. I wish I had been able to experience this film in the cinema the first time around, but I am grateful I can watch it whenever I want after that, because for some reason, every time something difficult or painful happens in my life, every time it feels like the world will collapse around me, I always instinctively put this show on. Maybe it's because it's comforting to see someone else deal with difficult problems, making it easier for me to deal with mine. Maybe it's because the music and visuals are so heartwarming. Maybe it's because I relate to Shoya so much. Maybe it's because Shoko is comforting to watch. Maybe it's because the message of hope, redemption, and future that the show portrays leaves me with content and calmness. Or maybe it's all of the above. No kind of conversation and no amount of writing will ever make me feel the way A Silent Voice does. There's something the show conveys to me that I can't put into words. It's a multitude of indescribable feelings. It's an experience. It's a journey. To know what I'm talking about, you're just gonna have to watch it yourself. A Silent Voice stays with you forever. Till next time.